I finally learned the lesson that I have to do as much as I can with what I have now, whatever the parameters are now.
Not only is it not limiting and you just need to make the best of it, it's actually
better.
It's better.
It is
for
better.
the best. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is Photography is Nothing. I'm Courtney McCracken.
And I'm Zach Dobson.
This is a podcast about photography.
And life.
And all the things.
All the things of life. Because as Henri Cartier-Bresson said, photography is nothing. It's life that interests me.
Right. So we've made now, this is episode 9 of our podcast, and we've gotten to a place where we've learned some things. We've learned a lot of things. It's surprising how quickly you can learn things that you can't learn until you do it, right?
Yeah.
So we had to eventually, we talked a very little bit about in the first episode about how it was a lot of work getting to this place of making this podcast. And it took a lot of convincing, really, me to do it and to develop the concept that we are now running with. It's equal parts like just conversational and educational. And as we are getting our footing, we know that as we look ahead, we're looking towards, having guests and interviews and including some of our travels and adventures with our kids that we do.
Yeah.
And what we do out in the world. And I feel like it's as good of time as any. We never really kind of explained like who we were.
Sure.
Or introduced ourselves.
So we work together. We have 5 kids. We homeschool.
We live together.
We're
still married.
We had one question about how we, do homeschooling stuff.
I think the command was talk more about homeschooling.
Okay.
Yes, I think it was a command.
Okay, you're right.
And also the other comment was...
Yeah, it was about how I take photos with our kids present because we go do a lot of stuff together and I photograph it and it's not focused on the kids. It's photographing the places we go and the things that we do. And sometimes kids are in the photos and other times they're not.
Right. So at the very beginning, we met in college at Indiana University.
I was studying photojournalism.
You sure were.
Yeah, taking lots of pictures.
And I was hanging out, getting another degree, English literature. We were both like, you know what I've always wanted to do is I've always wanted to like travel the U.S. and take pictures and tell stories.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that does not sound like that crazy of an idea in 2025. I need our audience to understand that in 2004...
There was no social media.
So if people were doing that, it was like for a major publication.
Yes.
If you were being paid to do that.
Yeah.
The only way to make a living traveling and telling stories was to be like a travel writer for a publication. Wouldn't that be great? And we could like live in our car.
Yeah.
I had a Subaru Forester.
Right.
And I remember imagining like I could just sleep in the back of my car.
Yeah.
And like drive it around the country.
Yeah.
And you were like, that is exactly what I want to do.
Right.
And we were like, that's interesting because literally any other person that I would have told that to would have been like, yeah, neat. Next, what happens?
Yeah.
You moved to Delaware.
I went to Delaware. So I got an internship at the Rehoboth Beach newspaper in Delaware. And it was an unpaid internship. It was the only one I could find. It ended up then 2 towns over, their sister paper, the Delaware Wave, had a opening for a job, so I took that. I still remember that was like, they were like, we're going to pay you $11.50 an hour. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's not bad at that time. And then like,
you're just
a
like
day later or a few hours, I don't remember how much longer later, they're like, actually, it's $8.25.
Yes, with a college degree working for a newspaper. No,
to have to pay to live in a beach town.
Yeah.
On $8.25 an hour.
But you did it. You found a way.
I did it because someone was connected and they knew of this place where I could live for like $100 a week in this house with these Eastern European young people who were working at the hotels and resorts nearby.
Right. So they were people
they
there
wanted
on,
like a American person to just live in the house. I didn't have to do anything.
But they were really fun. So
I
came to visit you.
Yeah.
And then was like, okay, I think I'll just marry him.
Yeah.
And so, none of this adds up.
Right.
So let's go.
Yeah.
You're making $8 an hour.
Yeah.
Living as like an RA basically for a bunch of like kids on visas, like work visas.
They were from Slovakia and the Czech Republic.
And they were fun.
They were great.
They were really fun. They reminded me
They brought
a lot
their
of
own
my camp
alcohol
friends.
that they made themselves. Slivovitz.
Yeah. How did they even get it to the U? Like, how did any of this happen?
Yeah.
Okay. So I took a job in Chicago. And it was terrible. I'm not going to go into the details.
Yeah.
Living in Chicago was fun.
That was great.
And you came to Chicago.
My affordable living situation was coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I don't know. I got to get out of here.
Hey, you know what you should do? You should come to Chicago.
I don't even think that. I think I said that. I think you were nervous about me coming to Chicago.
Well, I think I was too. Because I was like, this doesn't make any sense. We barely know each other.
Right. And then it becomes kind of more serious than it had been.
Absolutely. You took it up a notch.
Yeah.
So you came to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
We enjoyed living in Chicago. And fast forward to a year later, we're engaged.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So we get engaged. I make another decision, and that is to move
to Indianapolis.
Move home.
Home. That was really what it was.
Was really what it was. Because
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I'm getting married. And I'm going to want a family. You know, you and I.
We were going to have the wedding in Indy.
Right. And you knew that I really wanted to have a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
That was always really important to me. And I always wanted a big family. And then we were also looking at this point, we had developed a concept.
Yeah.
For what you were going to do for work. And we thought that a smaller market would be advantageous where we knew a lot of people already. And I thought, this makes sense. We should come here and we should work.
Well, you know, at first, I almost took that job at that newspaper.
Right.
We were still thinking about that when we first came back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And it would have been a commute for a newspaper. That would have been terrible. Because
it was like
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
30 minutes away. And yeah.
Which is. So, okay. So you work at another newspaper in Elgin. You start working for a wedding company. This is while we're still
That's
in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then we decide to move while you are still under contract
with the wedding company. So I was driving up to Chicago every single weekend for a year.
And we thought it was for good money compared to what
$400
$400 a wedding. And you would go and you would stay on like friends' couches.
Yeah.
Or drive home after the wedding.
Yeah. Sometimes I'd have two in a weekend.
Yes. And if you did, then you would sleep on somebody's couch.
Yeah. There were definitely times when I drove in really early in the morning, worked a wedding for like 12 hours, and then drove back.
Yeah.
It's 3 hours each way.
We did it a lot.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'd be eating, half the income that you had made in
if I had to pay for a hotel or something.
Or whatever. Yeah. So you did that for a while. You did a lot of weddings in Chicago. And what we basically realized was like, we started to get wise to how much money the company was making.
Yeah, I was like $400 a week. $400 to $800 a week was pretty good because I'd been waiting tables to be able to do that instead. But then once you see like, the wedding studio is charging, whatever, $2,000 or more. And like I could just book if I booked one wedding, that's $5.
And you get to do
for the other
with
company.
Not a lot more work. Because I think, when you first get started, you're not sure what are they doing to book the weddings? How do they get the leads? How would I get the leads? And then we basically figured out how to do that. We saw what they were doing and we're like, this is crazy. Also, it was not a great work situation. So not only were they like taking advantage of your labor and not paying you adequately, but then on top of it, they
said they were matching photographers' styles with the bride. So they had a roster of photographers and the bride would pick their photographer. But really, I think they were selling the brides on weekend. Whoever was available.
And sometimes you would get brides that were not a good fit for your journalism approach. Right?
Yeah.
And this is also at the beginning of like photojournalism documentary wedding style.
I remember the feedback from the first wedding that I did solo.
Okay.
And they were like, first of all, he stood around a lot. And I'm like, what do they expect me to do? Be like every second, like, run over here, run over here. I'm like, I'm taking in the scene. I'm looking at what's going on. I'm finding good photos. Like, what? And then they
also, and I
said,
want to say that, sorry, you were not an inexperienced photographer, but because you were young, I think you were being treated poorly, as if by the brides and grooms.
Sure,
sometimes.
yeah, I was like 24.
And so they were, and you look young. You've always looked young.
Yeah.
And so then you are out there taking pictures, and they're kind of treating you like real crappy.
Yeah. So they said I was standing around. They were upset that the groom wasn't smiling in like the portraits, and I'm like, that's not his. That's his choice.
Problem. He sounds like he's not happy.
And then the third thing is, so I had only sent in selects, And then which was standard because I'd done weddings as a second shooter for this company. And then they were like, just send us every single photo you have. So I just sent everything. And then they were like looking through the photos. There's pictures of him in here, me, Zach, in our wedding photos. And they were mad about because I accidentally sent them everything, including I always take self-portraits. I'm not like composing a self-portrait. I like look over and I see there's a mirror and I'm like, I have a picture of me at this event. And so sending
that was on you.
That was on me.
That was on you.
So sending my self-portrait to people who were already mad at me was not a good move.
Was not the right look.
Anyways, so we were like, yeah, we could do this on our own.
But also they were getting a bananas number of images for the money that they were paying. They weren't paying a lot, and then you weren't getting paid a lot. And then the whole process was just really icky. So we were like, you know what? We could do it better because we were planning a wedding.
Right.
And we saw how the process worked from planning a wedding.
And what average prices were for wedding photographers.
And how we found a photographer. I mean, we found our photographer by just Googling.
Yeah.
We just looked for somebody that came to Indianapolis or lived in Indianapolis and worked.
Yeah.
And like somebody who was nearby who did the style of photography. You just did the research and you found them. So we were like, oh, like this is how people, and that's how we found pretty much everything. There were only a couple of vendors that like my mom decided on. Everything else we were just kind of Googling.
Yeah, and we discovered some things like there was the Wedding Photojournalists Association. So it was like, a resource for people to find photographers who were already looking for my style.
Yeah, so you're just a good fit. And so then we started doing that. And so that went really well. We did some wedding shows. We got a lot of clients.
I feel like we booked 7 weddings in our first year.
It was crazy. It was awesome because you had already done like 25 weddings.
More than that. I'd done like 33 or 4.
Oh my gosh. You had done like 34 weddings.
Yeah.
And so you had the experience and could totally swing it. It was great. It was great. So that went well. After we got going with, at this point, we had decided we're going to work on our own. So basically that's what I'm getting at, right? Is that we had decided we need to stop, the newspapers aren't paying you well. Studios aren't going to pay you well. Nobody is going to, they're going to pocket most of the income.
Right.
And you're going to be expected to work crazy hours all the time, be on call. I mean, that was the kind of stuff we were dealing with. People who wanted you to be on call 24 hours, 7 days a week for like $24,000 a year. And even in 2004, 2005, that was no money.
Yeah.
That was no money.
Right.
It was absolutely insane to not be able to promise you a couple nights off to bartend or wait tables to like make ends meet.
At that newspaper in the Indy area that we looked at, they wouldn't even, I was in the interview and they had me do a second interview and they were trying to get me to do like a third. And on top of that, they wouldn't tell me what the salary was.
Yeah.
And they were like, we want you to be available 24 hours. And I'm like, well, how often would you be calling me in, like in the middle of the night? How often does this happen? And they wouldn't tell me. They're like, well, we can't guess what the news is going to be like.
And you're like, how much news happens here?
I asked the other photographer who worked there.
Indiana.
I asked him, like, how long? He's like, I've been here, 15 years, and I've come in like one time.
Yeah, like how hard is it to be
answer.
Like, not that often?
Right.
I mean, if it's only going to happen once a year, maybe, you can have a job, and you can just call off your job.
Right.
And go do the assignment if that's what's required from your mate. Like, there's a way to work through that, but they wouldn't give you that information. So
nobody was paying anything in the newspapers. I wanted to add too.
We
talked about how little I was getting paid in Delaware. The managing editor, which is like the person who's like, I don't know, second or third on the roster of on staff, had a second job waiting tables. Yeah. And I'm like,
criminal.
It was. Nobody was, and I couldn't get a second job working at the newspaper because some days I'd work early in the morning to cover a city council meeting, and then other days I'd work in the evening covering like sports, and then other days it was like split. Like I'd work like 8 to 12, and then I'd work like 5 to 10.
Yeah,
and it's like you can't have a schedule.
No,
to even work a second
when you're
job.
Just supposed to be there covering stuff. Side note, not surprising, we are here where we are now due to how that was the beginning of money being the only thing that's made, which we talked about in that episode early on. Right, is that this is the beginning of that. Is that the only thing that's being created at that starting in the early 2000s was money for a lot of major businesses. So No actual journalism, no stories being written, none of this stuff. So this is the beginning of the end, right?
Yeah.
And we we
saw really quickly that we had to take this upon ourselves if we were going to do anything.
Absolutely.
Make any money, if we were going to do anything interesting.
Yeah, and we were trying all different kinds of things to like make a living like people in their 20s do.
Yeah.
And then we decided that we were going to start pursuing commercial work. You were getting portraits because people got married and then they call you and have you take pictures of their babies, or, you know, our friends would tell people
we were
about
doing
you.
weddings, portraits. We started doing
We
commercial.
weren't like pursuing portraits, but you would get calls for portraits and you'd do them. I don't think we ever charged adequately for portraits.
No.
Because it's very hard to ask people to pay you an actual living wage to come take their pictures. But it's actually like really time intensive to take family portraits. It's stressful.
Yeah.
They act like it's like the only pictures they're going to get of their kids in their entire lifetime. And and then it's really miserable too because they like make kids whatever. That doesn't work great. So we did not like portraits.
And I was stringing for the Star.
Oh, that's right. That was so exciting.
Because
you would get paid.
I'd get $100 a shoot.
And we thought that was like so much.
And sometimes a shoot was like a basketball game, and I'd be there for 2 or 3 hours. And other times a shoot was like, do this person's portrait, and it would take me like 15 minutes.
Yeah, like drive 10 minutes away, take their picture.
Yeah, and they would call me like 5 to 10 times a week.
Yeah. Do you think they called you that much?
Sometimes it got a couple. Okay. On average, I'd say it was like 3 times to 6 or 8 times. But sometimes I had some weeks where I'd do like 10 assignments for them.
I did not remember that many assignments. It was really exciting. You did. And of course, my parents thought it was very exciting to see your name in the Indianapolis Star.
Like it was more exciting to see my name in the newspaper where I made $100 than they didn't realize there was another shoot I did for some, restaurant's website, and I got paid like $1,000.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So then we started pursuing commercial work. You started meeting with ad agencies, and you were taking your photojournalism approach to that. And that's where I think, so through all the business, we were really integrated because basically, I was always concocting ideas about how you could make money as a photographer. Mm-hmm. And that became my job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like from the very beginning, like you're working for newspapers and waiting tables. And I was like, I don't think this is going to work. Like this is crazy. And I don't think that you just kind of did what you had to do. And you weren't like a big picture person, right? When it came to your life. I mean, which I think is probably typical for like 24-year-old boys.
I had big ideas, but I never thought about like how to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm more of a planner.
Yeah.
So we worked really well together from the very beginning because I was like, hey, you know what? If you're going to go do this wedding studio, you could just book your own weddings. And so then as a bride, I was seeing all kinds of materials and whatever, and I was like, we're just gonna like look at all these people's websites and figure out what we want ours to look like, and so on and so forth. And you started, and I am always kind of the person who makes you do things that are like extra.
The instigator.
I am the instigator. I get the ideas going. I love to come up with ideas and then be like, here's a great idea.
Yeah.
I like to design them and concoct them and then give them to you to enact. But also I think that we were doing, I could kind of see with my like marketing and business background, the potential in every situation. Right. Yeah. And so I've always kind of been like pushing that
things
side
forward.
Of things. Yes.
Yeah.
And so basically then that's what we've done. And,
yeah, it worked really well in the beginning having those multiple streams of income because there's the hummingbirds there.
Hummingbirds here? Hi. Oh my gosh, hi. Hello.
She's looking right at you.
So much.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know if you were going to come back. I didn't. Did you hear me talking to you?
She was very worried about you.
Oh my God, that was a hello.
That was a hello.
I missed you so much. I was so worried. I'm so happy you're here. Ugh.
It was unmistakable because
it was like 3 hellos.
And it was there was nothing in front of it. Like, it wasn't like they were looking at a flower and we mistook it for our greeting. There was just literally you.
I know. Well, this is my hummingbird.
Yeah.
And this fall we tore out we moved some plants that then after I did it,
Yeah, we realized that's where the hummingbird
the hummingbird would
living.
usually build their nest there. We have had this hummingbird for years,
Mm-hmm.
and hummingbirds live like up to 50 years, and
That's
they come
crazy.
back to the exact same places. So I was
Yeah.
really worried that I'd like kick the hummingbird out, and
Yeah.
that they wouldn't know that I didn't want
Want them
that.
to leave?
So like a couple weeks ago, I went out and I was like, hummingbird, where are you? I haven't seen you yet. And then they showed up like a few days later.
Yeah. So we were talking about multiple streams of income.
Okay, so
It
that
worked
was
really
really-
well in the beginning
Mhm.
because we had weddings, portraits, commercial work, editorial work, and all of this stuff. So it was going well, and we went along that way for a while.
Yeah,
We
and you
did
would
weddings.
do editorial assignments. And well, the weddings then eventually fell off around
We
2015.
stopped doing weddings in 2015.
We stopped looking for them, and then, but probably a year or two before. And then we were still getting referrals and doing things. You were still doing those
Yeah.
jobs. And then they just kind of, it fell away because we were ready to move on because we had a bunch of kids. So
Yeah.
we should go back and say, in 2009, we had our first child.
Yes.
And at that point, you were doing a lot of weddings.
Yeah.
And I did not like it because you were gone late at night, and usually like Friday nights and Saturday nights.
Yeah.
It was 2 nights in a row, and I was, and we had, I don't know, it was just us. We didn't have a lot of help.
We always told each other like, "Oh, weddings are great. It doesn't matter that I'm working on the weekend because we don't have a kid in school and like we don't have a 9-to-5 weekday job. Like we can just, it's okay to work on weekends. But the reality is that's what everybody else has weekends off. And so like friends getting together and barbecues and family things and
Yeah, I
as
was going
kids
to
got older, like
everything.
sports. So
Yeah.
our kids are doing sports and I'm out, doing a wedding, and you're having to like not only take a 6-year-old to go play sports, but then you've got like a toddler and an infant.
Yeah, and it felt really lonely.
Yeah.
It did, because everybody else was with their
Whole
husbands.
family.
And like nobody wanted to hang out with me with just my kids on the weekends because they wanted to be with their husband.
Yeah.
And so I got that. I had a great friendship network of
Yeah.
moms who were staying home with their kids. And I was kind of like, I've always kind of done work and stayed at home, but I always kept my schedule very flexible to the point that I really considered myself a stay-at-home mom, even though I did a lot of work. I don't think there's anybody who is, everybody's working. I really hate the idea that there's anybody who's not working, because
Yeah.
either you're taking care of kids, which you otherwise have to pay someone else to do. So it's work,
Yeah.
or you're cooking. Again, you're either doing it or paying someone.
These are all
there's
things
no-
people pay people to do.
Right. So it's work. Like there's nobody who's not working.
Yeah.
And unless you just don't have literally any obligations whatsoever, that is not a stay-at-home mom. Stay-at-home moms work all day long and they run our country and they make everything happen. And so we are not going to disparage anybody who's home. I felt really proud of what I was doing. But I also kind of was asking myself to show up as both a stay-at-home mom and a working person.
Yeah. Business
Like I was
owner.
imagining myself kind of as both things.
Yeah.
That was really hard. That was a lot of work. And then you were gone on the weekends and I hated it. And then by the time we had our second kid in 2011, and then we had our third kid in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time that we had number 3, you were doing a lot of night jobs. So we had
I was doing weddings and sports.
Yeah, so you were gone like 3 or 4 nights a week because you were covering sports across the state a lot.
Yeah, a
A lot
out
of basketball
town.
games, a lot of, that kind of
Football.
stuff, because you were working for an ad agency that was covering like high school sports.
Yeah.
Was responsible. And so you had so many jobs at night, and I was going crazy. And the week that she was born, our third child, right, you went out to LA for a week. So we were like,
Yeah.
by the grace of God, the spirits that whatever, there was a blizzard that caused me to go into labor, I think, because of the barometric pressure, just in time to get that baby out before you took off for LA for a job.
That they were born and then brought home. And
Literally,
then the next day I left.
yes.
Yeah.
Like you left on day 4 of their life,
Yeah.
Right. And then that was when we learned the hard way that it was really just us, and maybe that wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So, so then at that point, I was really pushing really hard for you to move more to daytime work.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I was resisting that.
Right, because those jobs were coming to you readily. And so I get that, you know what I mean? But it was also like really terrible to have every night by myself.
Yeah.
Without any kind of, especially because it wasn't something like where we could really afford like a nanny or something.
Yeah.
To help me. Sometimes we would get like some teenagers to come help or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it just wasn't like I couldn't get like regular help because the jobs weren't regular. It's not like I could book somebody for like 2 nights a week. Because every Tuesday and Thursday night you were working and I just had somebody there to help me.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. It was like, it was just all over the place all the time. So, so we just did that forever. Then we had a 4th kid.
Yeah.
We moved into this house. So how did we get to homeschooling? Our oldest kid went to school 1st and 2nd grade, and he was exhausted, and he was grumpy, and he was miserable, and frankly didn't feel like himself. It just wasn't him. His birthday's in May, and every year I remember thinking, oh my gosh, now he's 7. And then we'd have a really fun summer. We'd do so much stuff together. Our whole family was together as a unit again. Because during the school year, there was no time for that. Every day after school was completely determined by the school. What we were reading was determined by the teachers. What we were doing with our time, homework for 1st graders. You know what I mean? All this stuff that I just didn't believe in. We weren't on board with. And yet, only the child suffers if you don't follow through on going to bingo night, on going to
all
the
the
school
nights
carnival,
at the things.
You know what I mean? Like showing up at every kid's class.
Being a part of the
birthday
PTO or
and
whatever.
Joining the PTO because I wanted to have an impact at the school. And I wanted to have a voice. And all these things, it was so much. And I remember going in and volunteering, cutting papers or whatever stupid stuff I was doing. And I was like, oh, I'm just serving the system. I was putting a lot of time.
Change.
I'm not spending time with my kid.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even allowed to like see him and hug him. I mean, I would. It was so quick. It was like, hi, Mom. And then it was like, I'm just working in the system. I'm just another employee here.
Yeah.
I'm not here with my kid. And that was what I was really aching for, is to see him. I was leaving the other 3 kids at home. You were taking time off work so that I could go in and volunteer for a couple hours, and then I wouldn't even get any time with him.
Yeah.
And I hated it. And it just made, like, even talking about it makes my stomach sick. It wasn't what I wanted for our family. It wasn't what I wanted as a mom. It's not who I wanted to be. I didn't want my kids to go somewhere else. I wanted to be with them. They're the most like magical, amazing people. I created these people from like thin air. Their spirits like, teamed up with this body I made and chose us. And then here I'm just shipping them off to school. And that's the only way I could see it.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could see it, was that I was letting them down because I had committed and set an intention and I wasn't following through on it. I wanted to be a certain kind of mom. School was not allowing me to be that mom. I was tired. I was stretched too thin. I was serving a system that I didn't agree with. And eventually, after trying so many different things, I was like, this is so dumb. This is so dumb. Like, I just have to change myself and get comfortable with a concept that I really always thought was really weird and dumb and bad, and that was homeschooling.
Sure.
It took me literal years to come around on the idea. I had super ick around homeschooling because I didn't know what it was.
Yes, and I think our experience growing up where people that homeschooled was kind of like religious fundamentalism.
Not kind of, were.
Okay.
They were. And they're the ones that were able to create these fantastic homeschooling laws that allow people like us to raise our kids the way we want to raise them. And so, it's real interesting and complicated, right? And the joke has always been, for me, is that I say, I have 5 kids and we homeschool, but not like that.
Yeah.
And because I know exactly what's happening. First of all, you think because I have 5 kids that I am like sheltered and stuck at home and having children against my will. And I promise, if one of us was pushing to have more kids, it was me. It was me. You were ready to be done at 4. You felt like that was plenty. And I was like, I think
we'd always talked about 4.
Right. But what I really wanted was like 6 or 7. And then I had some like reality checks and was like, but I knew I wasn't done. We had one more. I knew he was there. And then we had him. And then I felt great. God, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we're done. And so I knew I was done. And I was really looking for that.
Yeah.
But okay. So that's why we homeschool, because we were wanting a lifestyle that we were not capable of having.
Right.
While schooling.
Yes.
So we chose homeschooling because it's the best thing for our family, because it's the best thing for our kids who are creative beings, who love autonomy. They're highly motivated, which I would argue all young kids are, but as long as you don't squelch it.
Yeah.
But I think that they are self-directed because they have always been allowed to be.
I think this is the good transition, because something that's always been important to us is, being in charge of our own time and making our own things and doing things together.
Right.
And so that's what homeschooling allowed us to do.
Yes.
And that's also been the trajectory of
photography,
our business,
and like what we're doing.
Yes. So then, okay, we're taking on our own clients. We're, choosing who we work with. We're doing our own work. And then that led to this idea of like what we saw we could do through social media, generating our own stories. And before social media, that's really where we were at. Like I was trying to do stories that we could publish or sell or do other things with. And in the beginning, I was doing those by myself. When our oldest was 1, I was going and doing the fair project where I was traveling around the state documenting fairs and festivals.
We came with you to a lot of that, but not all of them.
Not all of them. We did some of them. We did maybe like.
But it was so easy when we just had like a baby or a toddler and a baby. I
Right.
hate to tell all parents of toddlers plus babies that it's actually only getting harder.
Yeah.
And it was easy because it was like I could just take them anywhere. They didn't cost a lot. Like they just like babies are kind of cheap and easy to take with you places. They fly for free. They do things. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay. So yes. And I think that then we got into that school age thing. Also with your photography, we were seeing the same problems. And that's what you're saying, is that the jobs were interfering with the family life we wanted to have. And it was just constant.
Yeah.
That
and
we were
so,
at odds and like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right.
I had like my biggest client for a period of years there was really trying to be very controlling of my time. And it was kind of like, you got to do things on our schedule, our way. Like we're sending all this work to you. Like, and so that was a controlling situation. And then, so, you move away from those things, but then you move towards it, the same thing in a different
kind of cycle
area.
through it in different ways.
Yeah. And then it was like, we started making the stuff for social media. And it started seeing like, oh, we can generate our own content and we can, make an income through views and through partnerships and sponsorships. And
okay. Well, I want to talk about when you started to, so like most things in our lives, no, this isn't true. You and I take turns at pushing the envelope, pushing the other person to do something. Like you really pushed me with this podcast. I push you more with family life stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was saying is that you have got to figure out how to take pictures with kids in tow. You have to.
Yeah.
Because we can't do this unless you can do that. And that was just it. Like, it was like, you have to be able to, otherwise, like, what are you doing? You're just working a job like anybody else. And that's not the vision, right? That's not the vision.
Right. I think a lot of that came from, I think maybe the thing that, tell me if you agree, I think maybe one of the main big things that pushed things over the edge on that, forcing the issue, was the personal legend project.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, because what happened was,
I lost my friggin' mind.
I decided in 2016, so in Courtney's ninth month of pregnancy with our fourth child, I decided I was going to do this project where I went around the central part of the state documenting people who were like kind of living their calling in various ways.
Yes.
And it was a good idea for a story, and I'm glad I did it. But I said I'm gonna put out one a day for the whole month of April. And
and I said yes. Because I always do. I don't know what my problem is.
Yeah.
And then I get really mad.
And
then I say no. But then I also wouldn't let you quit, because that's also what I do.
No, because then I did want to quit like a week in.
I was like, absolutely not.
No. And then, we did it in a way where, like, I went and shot, like, 3 or 4 of them on some days, and then we released them one day at a time. And I did miss a few days, but I set out to do 30, and I think I did, like, 26 or 27. But then it was like, no, I can't do projects and stories in that manner. It doesn't fit our family. It doesn't fit our goals, and it also doesn't fit the reality of our lifestyle.
Well, I think that we fall prey just like anybody else does who's a creative. Like, you can start to feel like you really want to get, I think there's something to be said for trying to get some momentum going.
Yeah.
But I also think that ideally you aren't constantly in a position where you need to get some momentum going. But we live such a complicated life that we have, like, periodically throughout time fallen in ruts and needed to get something going. And you get an idea, you especially, well, I think we both do. I get these like big ideas too. I'll be like, let's do our mudroom.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
we like tear out a room or like peel wallpaper. And I like think this is like a weekend project, and it's actually like a 6-week project.
Yes.
And our life is turned upside down because of it. And so I think we have a tendency to think really big and aim really big, and then kind of like fizzle out because we run. And at this point in our life, what we've been really wanting as we are approaching middle age, because I will not accept middle age is mid-40s because I only became an adult like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So I still have a lot of time to figure things out.
Yeah.
And need it. And I think we are approaching the point where we're really trying to create a stability that all the chaos of having like babies and, you know, toddlers and the breastfeeding and the like learning how to homeschool and, you know, just trying to find some like regularity.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what we've been working on in this current phase. So a lot of the work we're doing looks the same with the exception of the podcast, which is a new iteration.
Right.
But I think it's being done with a different purpose, and we have like a bigger vision for ourselves.
Yeah.
And for our company and for our kids. And something we've always wanted to do is travel. And we haven't gotten to do a lot of traveling because our life has been wild.
Yeah.
A wild roller coaster ride.
Yeah. Travel and tell stories together.
Absolutely.
So something really huge that I learned over the years and had to completely change my mind about is I had kind of this old way of thinking about what it was to be a photographer and tell a story, is that you go off and you travel for months and you tell this in-depth story and you spend, you know, all this time on it and you work in real detail and, you know, and then like you kind of come back home and be with your family because that's what people always did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to see like, even that wasn't the life that I wanted. I didn't want to go away from you guys.
I think you just didn't know what else to do.
I didn't know else.
There
I didn't
wasn't a
know how
path.
else it could work.
Yeah.
I started to think, well, you know, when the kids get older, we can travel. When we have more money, we can do this. When this happens, I can do that. When that happens, I can do this other thing. And it's like, at a certain point, you know, I finally learned the lesson that I have to do as much as I can with what I have now, whatever the parameters are now. If I want to travel and tell stories with my family, if that means like going up to Lake Michigan for a day, like that's what it is.
Not only is it not limiting and you just need to make the best of it, it's actually
better.
It's better.
It is
it's for
better.
the best.
It is. And so much of the way that I used to tell stories or wanted to tell stories was like where my attention is 100% in this thing, and it's really in depth, and I'm spending a lot of hours on it. And what I've learned when I've gone out and we've taken pictures together and done stories traveling, I don't have to be all of that to get photos that I like. Not only was I, you know, moving through places and seeing more things and taking different photos, like, and not lingering on one thing for too long, I was also like getting to bring my family into these experiences.
Yeah, I think it's just better all around, right? And I think that the big thing is that when it comes to homeschooling, when it comes to taking pictures with your kids in tow, when it comes to anything that we've done, having 5 kids, right? And having like a fixer-upper of a house and having all these things we want to do is not that it like goes so smoothly for us.
Right.
But just that like it's more interesting. It's more exciting. It's deeper and richer. And I mean, I don't need things to be neat and tidy. I want an interesting life.
Right.
And so, yeah, like maybe there's a way to have like a very fine-tuned, like perfect little photo story that's all tied up in a bow and covers every tidy thing and it's perfect. But then like, where's the rest of your life?
Yeah.
What's the rest of your life look like? And it's really not about that. Like our lives have to be, for me, I just want a whole life. I want my life to be my art. I want, I always think about that Helena Bonham Carter quote where she says, that life is art. This is your art. Mm-hmm. The whole thing.
The way you live.
The way you live. Everything you do. This is your creation. And I just really embrace that. And I have felt like we have made a lot of strides towards living that way. It is hard. We live in a society that wants us to do every single little thing perfectly, but we only have 100% to give across all channels.
Yeah.
And so it's not possible. And you have to learn to accept like the balance of things that, and another thing that I have always felt like is that along the same lines is, and I've told my friends this, as they have babies and their houses get messy and their, and their clothes start to get worn out and their, and their hair's a mess and all these things. And I say like, you know what? I have never met somebody with a pristine exterior of their body, of their home, of their life that's actually interesting. I have never.
Yeah.
I have never, because everything interesting happens in the messy.
In the mess.
It is all the interesting stuff is in between. And so it's so satisfying to get to that like culminating event where something is perfect. But what I've like realized is that I guess it's just not going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
My life has too many facets to it. And God forbid I ever get to a place where I can have a pristine home, because what does that mean?
Right.
Nobody's in it.
Yeah.
Nobody's in it. Nobody's here. And that's not the life I want. I want kids and grandkids and pets and animals and neighbors and other people's kids. And I want them here. And they make messes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I want to go back to and say about how the photography ties in. Not only are these the parameters and the directions that I'm receiving not limiting, they're also making me better. Like what I've discovered that I really love has come from adjusting to what my life is. Being like, I don't need to, like you were saying, making a perfect little story and tying it up in a bow. Like, no, I can be like these photographers that I love who are basically like photographing a vibe. Mm-hmm. The story is a vibe, like an Eggleston photo. The story is it's a moment of a time and place, and that can tell its own kind of story. And what I love more than storytelling are the feelings, and you can capture a feeling in just like a moment that's anywhere, just anytime.
An image, a single image.
Yeah.
And you would have never gotten there.
No.
Had you not been forced to. So
exactly.
we do. This is a belief. I would say it's a moral value that we practice living within the parameters and trusting that they're there to make us who we are. We set intentions and then we allow ourselves to be guided by what is laid out in front of us. And I think that's what schooling did, is showed us, like, we had set intentions for the way we wanted to live. And being in school was not going to work for us. And so I had to do the work. You were always okay with homeschooling because you like to operate outside the system.
Yeah.
But I like to follow rules.
Yeah.
I love the idea of winning and being the best.
Sure.
And I was going to be the best and win at parenting.
Yeah.
And I do think I'm winning at parenting, but in a very different way than I thought it was going to be, which is one of my big lessons that I've learned, is that you're going to get what you want, but it's not going to look how you thought it would look.
Yeah. I think the biggest lesson is that we had these ideas of who we wanted to be and what it looked like and how it was going to work. But to really get there, we had to take any expectations out of it.
Of how it was going to work.
Of how.
We were
what
wrong.
it actually looked like. What it actually looked like.
Yes, and how it's actually going to play out in a tangible way.
And I think that that's what's important for people.
Yes.
Is being like, well, you
want to be friends with your kid? It might not look like what you thought it was going to look like.
You want to take pictures and have a family?
It might not look like
what you thought. It might not look like what you thought. It doesn't mean it's not possible. It means that you need to reconsider what it was that you're doing, and there must be a better option for you.
Yeah, I think that if you have a dream, you have to pursue it. You have to pursue it.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to change and evolve because it's a dream because you aren't that person already.
Yeah.
And so you have to become the person who lives that dream.
Yeah.
And that person is when you have big dreams, is a totally different person than the one that's starting out the journey.
Yeah.
Right? This is your Odyssey. This is it. This is your hero's journey.
Yeah.
And like, come on, get on it.
Yeah.
Like, have fun, do it. And then just, everything you thought was going to happen is not, and everything different is going to happen instead. And it's going to turn out even better than you thought.
It's true. I was so against like doing any sort of video kind of stuff.
I know.
And then once I finally went along with it, like I got like carried up in the stream of it.
Same with social media. You were so against social media.
Yeah,
You
I hated it.
You hated it. And then it's like, and now we really have learned that lesson that like new things happen and like, let's be curious about them and let's get on board and let's embrace them.
Yeah.
And it really is like, because that's another hero's journey principle, right? Is the first thing is the call. And we get calls all the time, probably every day.
Yeah.
And the call is always going to be, you know, are you going to do it willingly? So
Right.
the rule is that the call, you're called and you have the choice. Will you do it happily
Yes.
and have wonderful, beautiful like support along the way? Or will you do it begrudgingly and go through a trials along the way? Either way, you're going on the journey.
Yeah.
So you start to embrace that. If you know, we've started to embrace that whenever we can see this is a call to action, this is a call to rise up to a new level, to try to embrace it. And I really was not super great when it came to the podcast thing. I was really shoved into this journey. And so I think a lot of the resistance that came about because of that was definitely because I dragged my feet.
Sure.
And convinced you to drag your feet and to play small. And that happens. You know, it was trials and tribulations to get to
Right.
you know, this being able to be published.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. When you don't do it intentionally and with excitement and joy and just embracing it, it is going to be hard.
Yeah. And I did that with social media in general. You were
Right.
always trying to convince me to do that, and I just didn't want to have any part of it.
But then you had heard, so we could go on and on and on, but we really do need to stop because
Okay.
I have to take the kids to the pool.
Okay.
Okay. Good podcast. Okay. You really